You're breathing right now, and you probably didn't notice until I pointed it out. This small detail shows how oxygen, despite being essential, often goes unnoticed. It's always there, invisible, constant. But what if suddenly it vanished? Not for hours, not even for minutes, just for 5 seconds. It sounds trivial, but it's not. In 5 seconds without oxygen, the world would plunge into a silent collapse. Not because of a lack of air in your lungs, but because everything, literally everything, depends on its presence. What would happen to your body, to the environment, to machines, buildings, the planet? And what happens when oxygen returns? That's what we're going to explore now. No exaggeration, no fiction, just facts. The first thing that comes to mind when you hear lack of oxygen is suffocation. But it's not quite like that. The human body can endure a few seconds without atmospheric oxygen without shutting down. Your brain, for instance, only starts to suffer damage after 10 to 15 seconds without oxygenation. So, in those 5 seconds, no one would faint or die immediately. But the problem isn't inside you, it's all around you. Oxygen makes up about 21% of dry air. Without it, air density would drop sharply. This would cause a pressure change comparable to being instantly teleported to an altitude of over 3,000 meters. In other words, your ears would pop, your eardrums might rupture, and capillaries near the skin could burst. Not due to a lack of air, but because of unregulated pressure. Another point, oxygen helps filter ultraviolet radiation. Without it, UVA and UVB rays would hit your skin and eyes directly. Even for just a few seconds, this could cause discomfort, burning sensations, and, in extreme cases, minor damage to exposed cells. Your body would switch to high alert mode. Your heart rate would spike, your pupils would dilate, and your muscles would brace for action, even if you're not sure what's happening. A sense of disorientation, mild dizziness, or auditory emptiness would take hold. Because at that moment, sound would vanish too. Sound needs air molecules to travel. Without oxygen, air density drops, and sound transmission becomes nearly impossible. It's like pressing mute on the entire planet. For 5 seconds, the world would be eerily, completely silent. No engines, no footsteps, no voices, just the internal hum of your own body. This silence would bring more than unease, it would bring confusion. The brain, accustomed to constantly processing sounds, would go on high alert. At the same time, light would change too. The blue color of the sky depends on the scattering of sunlight by air molecules, particularly oxygen and nitrogen. With oxygen temporarily gone, the sky would appear darker, almost gray, as if a storm were brewing. Meanwhile, machines would grind to a halt. Airplanes would lose lift. Car engines would shut off. Combustion systems can't function without oxygen. Any thermal engine, from cars to industrial generators, would stop in that instant. The consequences could vary. Some cars would simply turn off, but an airplane in mid-flight might experience a momentary loss of control. Combustion-based medical equipment, industrial valves, high-temperature furnaces, all would pause involuntarily. Now look at the structures around you. Buildings, bridges, tunnels, materials like steel and concrete rely on stable chemical bonds that include oxygen in their composition. Without it, even briefly, those bonds become unstable. This wouldn't immediately topple buildings, but it could accelerate microfractures or cause structural creaks that worsen over time. Then there's the planet as a system. Photosynthesis would stop. Aerobic respiration would pause. This affects trillions of organisms, from plankton in the oceans to fungi in the soil. While 5 seconds wouldn't kill these organisms, the synchronized interruption would create a functional void in the ecosystem, a break in the cycle. Fire, anywhere, would go out. From fireplaces to refineries, from stoves to wildfires. Without oxygen, flames cease to exist. But when oxygen returns, those heat sources remain. And with them comes the risk of uncontrolled reignition or explosions due to sudden reoxygenation. The atmosphere's chemical balance would also destabilize. The ozone layer formed from oxygen would lose its function. Surface temperatures could fluctuate. Animals sensitive to rapid changes, like birds and insects, might become disoriented. Compasses could show momentary fluctuations due to localized electromagnetic disturbances. Even water, in theory, would be affected. After all, it's made of hydrogen and oxygen. But don't worry, water wouldn't disappear. Removing oxygen at an atomic level is hypothetical and impossible with current physical means. Still, this idea underscores one thing: oxygen isn't just in the air, it's in nearly everything. And then oxygen returns. Suddenly, your lungs pull in air as if nothing happened. But what seems like relief brings new risks. The re-entry of oxygen into the system triggers a chemical explosion of resumption. Engines try to restart, sparks form, and reactions multiply in factories, refineries, and pipelines. Some areas might literally explode due to accumulated combustion. Atmospheric pressure returns to normal. This sudden shift forces air to rush back into spaces, putting pressure on surfaces, walls, and windows. Some glass panes might crack. Some already compromised structures might break. Internally, your body exits emergency mode, but the sudden influx of oxygen generates an excess of free radicals. This causes cellular inflammation and an oxidative spike in some people, especially those with respiratory issues or heightened sensitivity. And finally, there's the psychological impact. 5 seconds. Silence. A faint darkness. Everything stopped. And then, everything returned. That brief interval would be enough for many to feel that something broke in the world. Confidence in the stability of reality would crack. In the end, what seemed like just a momentary absence of air reveals something much bigger. Oxygen isn't just fuel for breathing. It's the invisible link between biology, physics, chemistry, and human perception. 5 seconds without it expose an entirely vulnerable system. A world dependent on an element we don't see, but whose absence makes it painfully clear how much everything relies on it. If you could experience this moment, what would you feel? Panic? Curiosity? Absolute silence? Share in the comments how you imagine those 5 seconds. And if you'd like to see other what-if scenarios, leave your suggestions. Until next time.